The gym on Naval Base Coronado smelled like floor polish, old metal, and sweat, the kind of smell only people who lived their lives in uniform came to appreciate. Brad, the janitor, pushed his mop across the glossy floor in slow, even strokes, careful not to wake his son, Liam, who sat curled up in a corner with his backpack as a pillow. It was just after 0500. The sun hadn't even considered rising. Brad liked it this way, quiet, empty, predictable. After everything his life had been before, this was peace. Morning, janitor man, boomed a voice that could have woken the entire Pacific Fleet. Brad didn't need to look up to know who it was. Admiral Jason Rourke, SEAL legend, trident icon, and the kind of man who thought his jokes were intimidating when in reality they were simply loud. Morning, Admiral, Brad replied calmly, wringing his mop. Rourke strutted in like he owned the gym, and he did, in all but paperwork. Behind him followed 6 elite SEALs, all laughing, stretching, tossing towels around. "Hey, we got a question for you today," Rourke said, stopping in front of Brad with a grin that spelled trouble. "Boys, watch this. I ask him every week." Brad kept mopping. "If it's about when I'm gonna join you for a workout, the answer is still no." The SEALs chuckled. "No, no," Rourke said, waving a hand. "I mean your rank. What was it? Private, corporal, maybe a petty officer?" He gave the janitor a playful slap on the back. "Come on, we have a bet going. I say E3 tops." One of the SEALs whispered, "I say he never even made it through basic." They all laughed. Brad didn't. For the 50th time, he sighed, "I don't want to talk about my past." "Oh, come on," Rourke said. "We're just messing around. Lighten up. What was your rank before you became a mop-wielding ninja?" Brad glanced at Liam, who was still asleep. He didn't want this conversation. Not today, not ever. The fewer people who knew, the safer things stayed. But today, something in him shifted. Maybe because they wouldn't drop it. Maybe because he was tired. Or maybe because he'd heard his son crying the night before, worried that kids at school mocked him for having a dad who worked as a janitor. Brad inhaled slowly. "Fine," he said. "If I tell you, will you stop asking?" Rourke clapped his hands together. "Absolutely. Scout's honor." "You were never a scout," one of the SEALs muttered. "Shut up," Rourke whispered. Brad set the mop aside and wiped his hands on his old, faded janitor uniform. He looked the Admiral in the eye. "My rank was Fleet Commander." Silence. Dead, suffocating silence. Rourke blinked. "What? You heard me." The Admiral laughed. Loud, forced, awkward. "Ha, Fleet Commander. Good one." "No, seriously." Brad didn't laugh. Rourke's smile faded. The SEALs stopped stretching. One dropped a dumbbell. Another swore under his breath. "Because Fleet Commander wasn't a rank you joked about. Fleet Commander was a title whispered in strategy rooms, not spoken in gyms. The person who held that title didn't manage sailors. They managed naval power. Real naval power." Rourke swallowed hard. "That's impossible," he finally said. "The Fleet Commander I know, he disappeared. No trace." Brad looked away. "Yeah, that's sort of the point of disappearing." The Admiral's jaw slackened. "Hold on." He pointed a shaky finger. "You're telling me you're..." "Sir," interrupted a young SEAL, eyes wide. "Should we stand at attention?" Rourke's mouth opened but no sound came out. For a decorated admiral who had never once been stunned into silence, this was new. His face paled. He took a step back. Then another. Then, in a moment that would become base legend by noon, Admiral Jason Rourke collapsed onto the gym bench behind him like his knees had completely given up. "You're kidding," he whispered. You're him. You're the Fleet Commander." Brad sighed. "Was." Past tense. "But why? How? What?" Rourke sputtered like a broken engine. "How does the man who commanded 3 carrier strike groups end up mopping floors?" Brad's eyes softened. "Because my son deserved a father more than the Navy needed another ghost." Rourke followed Brad's gaze to Liam, still sleeping, unaware that the gym was now a live grenade of silence. A SEAL whispered, "Sir, is this classified?" "Everything is classified right now," Rourke snapped, eyes still on Brad. "Brad, Commander." "Sir, do you know what would happen if the Pentagon knew where you were?" "Exactly," Brad said. "That's why they don't." The Admiral rubbed his face. "Okay, Okay, I need water. Someone get me water. A seal sprinted. Rourke took a deep breath. Start talking, please. Brad leaned against the mop handle. 10 years ago, I retired without retiring. That's not how retirement works. Brad shrugged. It is when your last mission ends with a blown-up destroyer, 27 classified documents going missing, and an entire foreign government pretending you don't exist. The SEALs stared like they were listening to a ghost tell his own story. I made a deal, Brad continued. They let me walk away. I gave up everything. Rank, identity, reputation. They buried me, officially. It kept Liam safe. Rourke exhaled slowly. Why didn't the Navy bring you back? Why didn't we know? You know how politics are, Brad said. Some powerful people wanted me gone. And some agreed it was for the best. But you saved thousands, Rourke said quietly. Maybe millions. Brad shrugged. People only remember the things you fail to save. The room went still. Liam stirred in the corner and rubbed his eyes. Dad. Brad went to him. Yeah, buddy. Sorry I woke you. You didn't, Liam said, yawning. Why is everyone staring at us? Rourke's throat tightened. The kid looked just like Brad. Same eyes, same stubborn jaw. And now that he knew who Brad really was, the Admiral felt a strange guilt settle in his chest. How old is he now? Rourke asked softly. 7. And all this time, you've been doing this job. This life. Alone. Brad nodded. I didn't want the Navy dragging me back in. Or enemies finding us. Rourke stood, slowly, like he still wasn't sure gravity worked anymore, and approached the boy. Liam, he said gently, kneeling so he was eye level. Do you know who your dad is? Liam shrugged. He's my dad. Brad smiled. You're right, Rourke said. And he's also one of the greatest leaders this country ever had. Liam blinked. But he cleans floors. Rourke felt his chest twist. Some heroes don't wear uniforms anymore. Brad looked uncomfortable. Admiral. Please. No. Rourke said firmly, standing. I need to say this. I should have treated you with more respect. God. We all should have. The SEALs, one by one, straightened their backs. Shoulders squared. Feet together. And then, something Brad had not seen in more than a decade, they saluted him. Stop. Brad whispered. Please. But they didn't. Liam tugged his father's sleeve. Dad, why are they doing that? Brad knelt beside him. Because I used to have a different job. What job? Before Brad could answer, the gym doors slammed open. A woman in a crisp uniform strode in, Vice Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Helena Briggs. Her presence alone could silence a riot. She had 2 aides behind her, each holding tablets. Rourke stiffened. Ma'am. Briggs didn't look at him. Her eyes locked onto Brad instantly. So, she said, her voice cool and sharp, the ghost finally crawls out of the shadows. Brad closed his eyes. Briggs. You know her. One of the SEALs whispered. Unfortunately, Brad muttered. Briggs stepped closer. You really thought you could hide forever. I didn't hide, Brad said. I walked away. It doesn't matter what you call it, she replied. Washington knows you're alive. A leak. We traced it here. Rourke glanced nervously between them. Ma'am, what does this mean? Briggs inhaled. It means the Navy wants him back. Brad's jaw tightened. No, you don't get to say no, she said. You're the fleet commander. You're still needed. I have a son. Briggs knelt in front of Liam, surprisingly gentle. Hello, sweetheart. Liam waved shyly. You want to protect him? She asked Brad without taking her eyes off the child. Then come back. Brad frowned. How is that protecting him? Because the people who orchestrated your disappearance aren't gone. They know you're alive, and they will come. A cold chill ran through Brad's spine. Rourke stiffened. Are we expecting hostiles stateside? Briggs nodded grimly. Yes. Liam leaned closer to his father. Dad, are we in trouble? Brad pulled him into his arms. Not as long as I'm here. Briggs stood. So what's it going to be? Keep pretending to mop floors while threats close in. Or step back into who you were born to be. Brad held his son a little tighter. Then he stood, slowly, deliberately. The SEALs waited. Rourke waited. Even Briggs waited. Finally, Brad spoke. I'll return under one condition. Briggs raised an eyebrow. Name it. My son stays with me. Always. Briggs nodded. Done. And, Brad continued, I choose my own team. Rourke's ears perked up. Your team. Brad looked around the gym. At the SEALs who had laughed at him. At the Admiral who had joked about his rank. At the men who now stood at attention for him. Yes, Brad said calmly. My team. The SEALs looked at each other, then stood even straighter. Briggs extended her hand. Welcome back, Fleet Commander. Brad took it reluctantly, but when Liam grabbed his other hand, he squeezed it reassuringly. Will you still pick me up from school? Liam whispered. Brad smiled softly. Always. Briggs cleared her throat. We start in 48 hours. Full briefing. Rourke stepped forward, his voice steadier now. Sir, permission to accompany you. Brad gave him a tired smile. Only if you promise to stop calling me, Janitor Man. Rourke chuckled. Deal. As they walked out of the gym, Briggs, Rourke, the SEALs, Brad, and little Liam, everyone on the base stopped talking. Mouths hung open. Salutes snapped into place. No announcements had been made. No message had been sent out. But everyone could feel it. The fleet commander had returned. And the world was about to change.